So, welcome everyone to Let's Talk Business series by RealtyNXT. And I'm delighted to have you guys today in this panel because it's a special for us. It was surprising also for us that in 4 years of RealtyNXT, this is the first time I'm having all the powerful women coming together for this panel discussion. So, I'm looking forward to have a discussion with you guys, not just about the gender diversity, but also get some gain insights or expertise on the Indian real estate market and Proptech market.
Thank you so much for having us. It is a pleasure, first of all, to be in such kind of a setup, which is not usual or everyday, and also to have these amazing two women. And hopefully, we all will speak about few interesting things here, which we do not do on an everyday basis.
I'm looking forward to that. So, first, foremost, which I want to ask from all of you. So, given the evolving consumer preferences which we are noticing and the emerging opportunities that are coming for home buyers in the Indian real estate market, is there a particular trend or is there particular opportunities that you have noticed is going to shape the future of the real estate market? Let's start from you, Ayushi.
So I think trends is a very short-term thing, and I've previously I've worked in the US and I've seen a lot of development with real estate, especially in that front because it's a more mature market for real estate, and hence I'm saying trends is short-lived. But I think overall we're seeing a transition from real estate just being product or design driven into a more system and service oriented kind of platform. What I mean by that is services and system oriented businesses like student housing, senior living, a lot of co-working spaces now. So all of these different types of almost businesses are arising out of real estate, which is a very interesting trend on the commercial side. And which slowly leads into REITs and fractional ownership and a lot of those type of more mature financial markets when we talk about real estate. On the residential side, I think consumers are now more aware of what they want in terms of design and the practicality. So they before they even come to a product, I think they've done their ground research on what they really want from the project, and for them when they come in, it's more of okay, does it tick most of the boxes or not? And I think that maturity for a consumer to have today, I think that awareness is what really is the shift in the residential segment, I feel.
True.
So actually there are very interesting numbers to look at. Although we're into automation space, but at the end of the day, our consumer is a person who's an occupier or a developer of the building. If you look at a commercial number, last year, 38 million square feet of an area was leased. And the most interesting part is that for the first time, 25% of that total lease amount was by co-working spaces. Yeah. During COVID, everything thought that the segment is just going to die. And the reason why the builders are flourishing right now is to give their entire occupancy to a co-working space provider. So that is something which has seen a huge shift. In fact, large global companies who never would have thought of giving up their spaces, they are giving up their spaces to be moving to places like these. Secondly, the high spurt growth in your tier 2 towns, because with all the hybrid working that happened, people were open to opening satellite spaces so that people could live closer to their houses. And now if you look at a market like Pune or Indore or even Ahmedabad for that matter, the amount of projects that are coming up is more than what is coming up in any of the metro cities. Hyderabad is literally 25% of the entire Indian market. Residential again has some very interesting numbers. There was a point where everybody used to say that millennials is the renting generation of all the times. Today, it is the only buying generation. And what has brought about this shift is during COVID, that was the generation which stayed at home, which also realized the need of larger spaces. So what it has resulted in, the format earlier, which was more acceptable, was 2.5 BHKs. Now that has become 2.5, 3.5 BHKs. Builders are rethinking their strategies on the kind of homes that they should have for these millennials. Also, the purchasing power parity has increased. Affordable housing is being relooked at because from the 70 lakh to 1 crore of the houses, their absorption would be around 56% before. Today, it has gone down to 47%, and that increase has gone to the houses which cost anything between 1 to 1.5 crores. And an interesting number is that 52% of the buyers last year was actually the millennials. They have become the decision makers. So they want luxurious houses, they want houses with amenities. They know that, if their family, their kids, and their parents have to stay here, they want larger places, they want pools, and they want their clubhouses. So, how we used to envision a house before, I think that entire thought process has changed. They are willing to spend. This asset class is not going away anywhere, no matter what people say. Because if you look at a rental rate in about 4 years, it increased 7.6% for residential, but last year the increase was 8.9%.
Yeah.
So these are what the numbers are looking like, and I think as and when the generation keeps shifting more after millennials, the Gen Z, which is going to come, they have again very astute preferences for they're looking at. I think every generation knows more and more of what they want, and it's just not a commodity anymore, but it's an essential space to their being. So I think that has brought about a great inflection point from where we stand today.
I think highlighting more from a perspective of what today India is and what probably or where the global markets are going. Since I deal with both the markets, I think there's a lot of shift. Per se, what I probably would want to comment over here is from an Indian buyer. Now an Indian buyer has become a global buyer. So the competition earlier was only with Indian companies or probably, on a performing basis, some top level companies with each other, but now the competition is global. So the one thing which we have seen a shift which has happened tremendously is that today a buyer is evaluating option not only in India, but they are evaluating options globally. Whether it is a Portugal, whether it is a Dubai, probably UK, US, everywhere, there is a possibility of the consumer to consume the property or purchase a property. So the evaluation, which was always based upon product, pricing, location, has gone up to now that limit that now people talk about ROI, about trading in properties. The term trading in properties were never there, but now there is a particular terminology which is trading in property. Buyers purchase the property for about 6-7 months and they offload the property in 6-7 months. They gain a ROI of about 15%, 18%, rental income of about 8 to 10 to 12%. That's how global markets are happening, and hence this entire shift of how we are selling the properties in India has completely changed. We very often meet investor who question us that whether to buy a property in Bombay, at Bandra or Andheri is more useful, or buying a property at Dubai would be more beneficial. And because the amount what they're investing is absolutely the same. So that consumer shift has happened. The second part of it is the seller, or I would say the guys who are selling, the salespeople. Earlier the means of selling used to be only maybe like a digital, or there will be a broker who would just go out and say that, hey, this is a great property, and there's a lead which was generated. Coming back to the topic which is AI, it was just based out of getting the lead, catering it properly, and then nurturing it. I think the newer ways and means now have come to market the property. It's about videography, it's about how you potentially show them the benefits of the product, the two country compliances, whether it is permanent residencies or residency visa or golden visa. So the way how the properties are marketed, the reason why they should be sold are very different. So this is like a mind shift. This is like, I would say, we've become more global in our approach. So that's a major shift which I've kind of seen over a span of 15 years now in the realty space.
So the Indian government has implemented a lot of policies and reforms, such as your PMAY, your RERA. So in your opinion, what kind of impact it has had on the market? And according to you, what changes or recommendations would you guys say can add on more to the, enhance the further industry growth and transparency? Let's start with you, Nidhi.
I think these schemes are extremely beneficial in bringing a very normal class person to think about an option like buying a house. I think that's absolutely right that with the rates going up for the bank or the mortgage rates coming up, it becomes for any middle class person to really imagine paying that kind of an interest plus the principal, the first tranche of installment becomes extremely difficult. I think how government today has definitely given an incentive to buy a particular property, yet the norms, to be very candid, I think the norms needs to be more clearer. They are more technically sound in terms of the square meter or probably the affordability range which is there. I think if the clarity on these parameter connecting to an individual income depending upon the tier cities should be more clearer. Once that is done, I think the layman can understand that language of when and how they can kind of invest. So just to put it very simply, they need to be classified, which means that the language needs to be very simple, very understandable. They need to be very clear upon the segment of income, as clear as how income tax rules are today, or GST rules are, or maybe transparency about what would be the normal norms on stamp duty are. Still, there is a lot of ambiguity on all these concepts like PMAY or a lot of things. So probably when a salesperson joins, we kind of educate a salesperson, and despite of the fact that he's kind of worked 15 years, 10 years, 5 years in this sector, he or she takes certain time to understand these concepts. For a layman to understand these concepts, depending upon the square meter or the kind of incomes, I think becomes a little difficult. So standardization of these concepts is what I strongly feel needs to happen. Till the time these concepts become understandable, it is very difficult for a layman to really absorb it and become more popular and common.
True.
Yeah.
Garima, you want to add anything?
So especially with PMAY, when it came out, like everybody, I was also a skeptic. But you're a skeptic until and unless you don't see what is happening. The PMAY, especially urban, has been phenomenal. So the idea was initially to have at least 20 million households being touched by it. And today we are sitting already at 1.3 million households being developed because of that.
Yeah.
Especially in the rural areas, people have used these schemes. And I would say that it makes me so happy when you're skeptic about something and you see that happen. It has worked so well. In Maharashtra, you go to the remotest of the places. There are people who have finally a shelter on their heads because they got subsidized from the government. So they had to put in some amount of money. So if ever somebody dreamt of having something which they were able to save, I believe that it has been phenomenal, and rural has definitely benefited, but I'm yet to see that in urban. I have not seen so many takers on the PMAY urban. Maybe the idea is that probably when a person is buying a house, they think, okay, a smaller amount of money, what is this subsidy going to do for me? A lot of unawareness definitely is there. That is a big problem. When you go to buy a house, nobody is actually telling you around the different schemes which definitely exist, and especially if you're a female buyer, it's more than even PMAY. And nobody's talking about it. And I think the problem with this industry is that a lot of things have been introduced at either state level or at a country level also, but there is no centralized way to view it or to understand it. So as a buyer, you end up being very confused. It's more by hearsay. You talk to a broker, you talk to a developer, maybe you talk to a certain set of friends, and that's how the buying mechanism is made. Nobody is really sitting and discussing, okay, this scheme exists. Have you used this? Okay, there's a 1% discount if you're buying as a woman, a woman buyer. That does not exist. In RERA also, government has tried to do good, but again, RERA is not a very old method that has been introduced. So despite of a RERA being there, if you think about NCR and the different cases which have happened, where people have bought these houses and they never saw the light of the day, despite of such a thing being in place, that transparency still either a buyer does not know it, they are not educated about it, or somebody really has not brought it about the right way. So last month, the RERA has spoken about QR codes being allocated to all the properties where a person can go and scan and all of these details. Now it has come out in the newspaper. Probably 3 of us, 4 of us sitting here because we are in this domain, we read about it.
True.
But the buyer class is
They
a
don't.
huge class.
Yeah.
They will not know. They don't
Yeah.
know what these QR codes are. It came in the newspaper once and it's gone now. So there has to be better methods how you try to educate as RBI not to do certain transactions. You try to make the people aware of the fraudulent services. It is something that really government needs to push also to an extent where what they've done with the RBI. People know what they do not have to do. Here, people neither know what they have to do nor they know what they do not have to do. So they end up doing nothing. So probably a push at a central and state level would be really helpful. And of course, people who are into the space, either building the spaces or selling the spaces, maybe if they took some onus on them to make the eventual buyers aware, because when you make the buyers aware, they also know that you're a more credible organization. And definitely they look at you very, very differently. But yeah, so things have existed. Not utilized properly, underutilized, and maybe it really still needs more time and much more impetus.
No, I agree with you. The lack of awareness is there because personally, I've seen in rural places like in Uttarakhand also, where I have spoken. I'm from Uttarakhand, so I have spoken about the PMAY. Maximum of them are not aware of it.
Right.
Why? Because if their panchayat is not aware, the gram panchayat, you make them aware now what is PMAY, how it's gonna help, how women can be empowered, and all of that. They haven't reached that kind of information from any kind of the state government or anyone who should be assigned for these, gram panchayats. Ki talk to people about this PMAY or tell the banks, the local banks, that if women is coming for the bank loan and all, the awareness on the state front is in few states. In Maharashtra, of course, I'm seeing the progress. In UP, I'm seeing the progress, but still I feel places like Uttarakhand, there are few more states, I'm sure, who would be lacking in that kind of awareness. And as you said, we are from this industry, we might be knowing about it, we might talk about it, but especially the buyers, especially even not just in urban, even in rural areas in the smaller cities, are not aware about the details of it.
Right.
So what's your take with that, Ayushi?
I think Garima covered it really well. Just one point with why PMAY in an urban setting, especially a city like Bombay or large parts of Maharashtra, is so PMAY comes with a certain space constraint and a budget constraint. That's how the scheme works. And with the MMR region, just because of how the affordability is, most of the projects kind of don't fall in that PMAY category. And a lot of representations kind of have been done on, kind of changing that segment, because the affordability criteria in the MMR region is slightly different from when we look at the other parts of, rural India. So I think just nitty-gritties of that, or nitty-gritties like that, which is why we don't see as much of it kind of picking up in the urban segment. But I think that, the more we work on it and the more, I think the vision that the PM has was very clear. And I think the more we work on it and the more we work with it, will we be able to, tackle all of these problems. Second, with regards to RERA, I think one thing that RERA has been able to do is it has been able to bring back trust into real estate. I think there was a phase that real estate went through when no one kind of wanted to associate with real estate. I mean, it was much before, I came in, and I came in kind of almost a year or so after RERA came about, and it was such a drastic change. One of the reasons why I saw a really bright future in real estate is because of this type of industrialization, almost advent of industrialization that came into real estate in India. Because without that, how do you professionalize, right? How do you grow? How do you go beyond just your micro markets? Because you want to do good business. whatever's happened, there are reasons why people did not want to go into real estate, but there are a lot of developers who want to do real good ethical business because this is their bread and butter. They're not here to just scam people or any of that. We're here to do good business, and we're here to stay for the long term because real estate is a long term game. And RERA really brings back that trust and grounding for the developer and for the consumer more than anything else. And I think that after RERA, I think we saw the transition of real estate being just an asset driven business where the builder is waiting on, price is going to increase, to almost an FMCG product where it's about inventory, you need to kind of sell it out. And of course that coupled with a lot of policies including the UDCPR where the FSI has now gone up, and so the prices are a lot more stable, which is a benefit for the consumers. Before, most of these global, whether you call it fund houses or even NRI customers, were skeptical coming to India because they didn't know where they were investing and when their money would actually be returned. But now because of RERA, I think that compliance level, that jitteriness has kind of gone in terms of the consumer's mindset. And I think Maharashtra RERA is kind of doing an exceptional job. There are other parts of the country, I think, that where RERA really needs it really needs more work, and maybe that's a push required from the central government. But I think MahaRERA is doing an exceptional job. The QR code has come in now. They're grading the developers, and as a developer, I know how much of compliance we have to put into the system. Otherwise, our projects get flagged or we get circulars from RERA, and that's because they're proactive. And see, it's about training. It's not like we don't want to do those compliances. We're new to it. So yes, maybe it may take my team 3 months extra to kind of get in sync with it. But now they all know before I tell them that, okay, all of these circulars have to be updated on RERA every quarter, and now they know it. And they're very happy to do it once that process is set. So because they understand the level of clarity it brings the sales, and in turn sales churns the entire cycle of collection, engineering, all of that, and that's how the business runs. And so I think a lot of good stuff is happening, and more push is required in certain areas, but I think that's a part of the cycle. We're in it, in the long run, and slow and steady, I think things will take shape. And MahaRERA is especially proactive about it. We know that, so I think we're in a good place.
As you said, MahaRERA is actually, especially in India, is the only state which is quite proactive. In a lot of states, still the RERA is not being implied, or the policy is not being acted as aggressive as how MahaRERA is. And I think recently they also have put this mandate for the agents to do a training course and get a certificate, and then only you can become the agent, real estate agent or broker. So do you think this kind of certificate will help filtering out, I would say, broker market will become more professional? Will this kind of help? Okay.
Definitely. I mean, most of the other global cities have this type of a registration process and these type of testing and training, because the broker is kind of the first face to the consumer, sometimes even before the developer. So what the broker tells the consumer about real estate, about maybe the simple definition of carpet area or usable area or mofa area, it just changes the customer's psychology 360 degree. It has that power, because especially when you're listening to something from a third person, right? If I have a broker, I'm looking at them as a guiding force. I'm looking at them to guide me, maybe go through 5 developers and then help me make the right choice. And so that's why the broker's fundamentals have to be very strong, and I think it's much needed.
Nidhi, you want to add to this?
Yeah, see, all these concepts, which is to have a license or to conduct a training program, is absolutely common in the global markets. And it's extremely interesting to know that India is now also recognizing that factor, that the broker per se needs to give the right knowledge to people, Reason being very simple, that whatever developer is offering as a product, I think that can only go to the consumer in the right manner if the intermediary which is there really talks right. And I think it's extremely important that these stands are becoming more clearer. So if you see these days, the segment of channel partners have been divided into three parts largely. The ICPs, who are institutional channel partners, you have RCPs who are regional channel partners, and then you have all these small time brokers also. So in a particular launch, you have almost about 50% market which is in the hand of ICPs. And yes, that kind of a training, because they themselves are institutions having 5,000 people underneath.
Yeah.
So it's extremely important for their training part. It's very important for how and where they are going, and not only that, even the marketing aspect, since RERA also talks about how you can market that. So all of these aspects covered in RERA, I think it makes it more feasible for any developer at this time, and also is very safe.